We
are
We are
cultivate.
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 Cultivate. We are Cultivate.
Hello and welcome to a special mini-sode of Ye Olde Crime, the show where Maddie and I discuss the funny, strange, and obscure crimes of yesteryear every Wednesday. This special bi-weekly segment is called Can You Crack the Cramp-Word, which is slang for a difficult or obscure term, which I thought was very fitting. And joining me today is Kris from the Does This Happen to You podcast. And before we begin, I'd like to give her the opportunity to tell us a little more about herself and her show before we get started.
Hey, Lindsay, thanks so much for having me. I'm Kris Kepler, and I'm an audiobook narrator, producer, and consultant, writer, and voice actor. I'm also an actor with an IMDb page, and I love telling funny stories on my podcast. Does this happen to you?
That is an excellent segue. So as you mentioned, you have 1,000,001 titles. So which came first, and what inspired you to kind of go down that route with your career?
What came first was actually the actor.
Okay.
And I got into acting through singing, because that's the first thing I actually got started with as far as creative arts was singing. I started singing in choir in junior high, and I
Okay.
sang in choir all the way up through junior college.
Okay.
And then I got tired of standing up there in a black dress in a crowd.
That's fair. That's fair.
And it's like, and then after several years, I decided that it's like, I would like to sing again.
Okay.
But I don't know if I want to do choir. And then a blind date took me to a Gilbert and Sullivan production.
Okay.
And on the back of the program, it said, "We're looking for chorus members." And so I called them up after the performance, and I went and auditioned, and in their next show, I was a fairy in Iolanthe. And
Nice.
it was much more fun to dance around with wings than stand around in a black dress in a crowd. So
I mean, it sounds great to me.
yeah.
So
It was fun. So I did another show or two with them. And it's like, gee, I think I would like to be at the front of the stage. And that's how I got into acting. And that
okay.
just sort of went from there. And then about 10 years ago, I discovered voiceover. And I really enjoy that because it allows me to combine my singing and acting skills.
Okay. Your podcast features kind of short and sweet, funny stories that are very easy to binge. How do you find the stories that you share on your show?
Right now I use mostly medium.com. It's a large blogging publication platform. And I collaborate with writers there. I find these just wonderful stories. And most of the times the writers aren't authors. So they're, you know, their stories are never going to be turned into an audiobook. But I think they're such wonderful stories that they should be heard by people, not
Mm-hmm.
just read. So, yeah, I have collaborated with a few authors who wanted to get their, a portion of their work out there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they weren't ready for an audiobook yet, but as a part of their promo,
Sure.
I narrated a short portion of their book so they could another way to promote their book. Yeah.
Staying with the audiobook vein of thought, what
Yes.
advice would you give to someone who is interested in getting started as an audiobook narrator?
Think about, it's a lot of you may enjoy reading out loud to your child or your friend's child, but doing that for 10 minutes is not the same as standing in front of a mic for 3 to 4 hours
I can
and bringing
imagine,
all those
yes.
characters and the narration to life. So you're gonna need training. Even as
Mhm.
an actor, I needed training, specialized training to learn to, properly narrate audiobooks. You are also need your own home studio,
Okay.
and you need to learn how to at least record yourself and just learn some basic editing at least. Because in some places, I mean, if you were out on ACX looking for independent authors that you want to narrate their book, you have to produce that book too, which means you have to do the complete edit and mastering. And that's a bit
Okay.
of, you have to learn audio engineering to
Mhm.
do that. So, yeah, just, get some training, sort of test the waters. Do I really want to stand in a small space in front of a mic for hours?
Yeah, that's fair. I would imagine after a while it gets a little claustrophobic when you're talking to yourself in a
Yeah.
small space.
Yeah, I don't my space really it doesn't bother me too much, but it can be. It's small. It's a small space. Most
Yeah.
studios are small spaces. So, yeah. Yeah. So you spend a lot of alone time with
Talking
a
to
book.
yourself.
Yeah, talking to
So I suppose
yourself.
you should also kinda like the sound of your own voice if you're gonna be talking to yourself for a long period of time
Oh,
too.
yeah, you have to learn to like the sound of your own voice because you're gonna hear it a lot. Yeah.
So, I kind of forgot to ask, what inspired you to create your podcast? I mean, I mentioned the stories that you pick for it, but what inspired you to actually start it?
It was I actually wrote a one-woman show that I performed several times. It was
Okay.
called Does This Happen to You at the Gym?
Okay.
And I loved doing that. And I just love telling funny stories about mundane things. I mean, because
Mhm.
this was, weird things that happen while sitting in the steam room at, the gym. It was like, so, and then I think someone mentioned podcasting and because I'm a voice actor,
Mhm.
it's a natural segue
Mhm.
that, I have all the equipment. And so I thought, well, I first thought about performing my own stuff, but it's like, yeah, I just couldn't write enough for a weekly
Yeah.
episode. It just, it was too much. So it's like I looked around, and I was doing some blogging and I found some really nice blogs and it's like, I'd like to narrate these and got permission and then it just snowballed from there. I just kept at it and kept looking to collaborate with more writers.
I listened to your most recent one today in the car, the one about, now I'm blanking on what it's called, but it's the furniture store for parents.
Oh, yes. Ruined goods.
Ruined goods. I was laughing so hard when I was listening to that because I was like, I relate to that so much. My God. And then the Viking funeral when in Norway and then
Yeah.
getting some IKEA furniture to replace it. I died. I was
Yeah.
dying. I was just cackling in the car. I was like, that is spot on what it's like to be a parent. AKA, if you are a parent, you are not allowed to have white furniture, and
Yeah.
there's a reason for it. And if you don't believe me, you need to
Yeah.
listen to this episode, which I will link to because it is a riot.
Uh,
It is a
that
riot.
was really fun to narrate. It's such a wonderful story, and it just has so many little twists and turns to it.
Yep. If you can't install this shroud, someone will come and install it for you.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think you could eat spaghetti and meatballs on the top of a jungle gym, but you'd be surprised what you can do. Oh,
Yeah.
God, that one was good. That one
eh,
was good.
that
Whew,
was a really fun one.
that was good. All right. Well, I don't have any more questions. So if you are ready, we can move on to the slang term portion of the interview.
Oh boy, yeah.
Okay.
Let's go for it.
All right. Your first term is painting a wife in watercolor.
Painting a wife in
Mhm.
watercolor. Oh my gosh. Wow. I would wow.
And this one technically isn't Victorian, it's a Regency slang term,
Oh,
if that
really?
helps you, if that helps at all.
Wow. The first thing that comes to mind is engaging a painter.
That makes sense.
Wow. Yeah, that's when I think about it because you would do that a lot in that period of time.
Hmm.
You would if you wanted any kind of portrait done, you would engage a painter.
Hmm. So, painting a wife in watercolor is Regency slang for infidelity because
Whoa.
an affair, like watercolor paint and unlike marriage, was easily dissolved.
Oh, interesting.
I thought that one was
Wow,
hysterical.
that's fascinating. Wow.
I was like, okay, that's rough.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Wow.
Your second term is croaks,
Croaks.
like Croaks,
Yeah,
croaks.
like frog. A frog
Yep,
croaks.
like a frog croak. Yep.
Oh boy. Oh my gosh. I mean, the the modern term is die.
It's
I
kind of along
wonder.
that vein. Yeah.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay. So the modern term derives from fall, tumble.
So, at least in Victorian slang, croaks was your last dying speeches or a murderer's confessions.
Oh, oh wow. Yeah. So it's very related to the modern term. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So literally
Interesting.
the last thing you say, like your
Yeah,
dying
last thing you
confession.
say. Yeah. And so, yeah, we just shortened it to die.
Yep, exactly. It's not nearly as whimsical now as
No,
it was back in the
no,
Victorian
it's
era.
not. I once attended a workshop where one of our fun exercises was to take on insults from the 1500s.
Okay.
Yeah, the like Tudor insults, like Shakespeare stuff. Oh my goodness, that was fun.
Oh, oh man. Wasn't one of them like bite my thumb? Like I bite my thumb at you? Like wasn't that one where it was kind of like basically you're giving somebody the finger where you bite your thumb at somebody?
Oh yeah, but it will. Oh boy, it got a lot better than that.
I'm sure it did. I can only imagine.
It's like,
That's the only one I can remember is because I remember learning that in high school, I think, or something, whenever we were reading some sort of Shakespeare thing.
uh-huh.
And that became the big thing we would do to each other. And we'd be like, "Ugh," and we would like bite our thumbs at each other and instead of pretending to flip each
Yeah.
other off. And it was, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Thou art a very ragged wart. I am sick when I do look on thee. Oh, yeah. Like that, boy. Yeah, we were really tossing them in.
Those are some zingers, man.
Oh, yeah.
You want some aloe for those burns, those sick burns.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, I would like to thank Kris for joining me today for Can You Crack the Cramp Word? And before we go, can you tell our listeners where they can find you on social media and when new episodes of your podcast come out?
New episodes of my podcast come out weekly on Sunday afternoons, and then they are uploaded to my YouTube channel on Mondays.
Okay.
You can always check there, and you can find me on Twitter at Kris Narrates. That's Kris with a K. And on LinkedIn and on Instagram, Kris Kepler. That's Keppeler. It's very German. So
And on that note, as always, I'm Lindsay, and I'll see you next time with another tale as old as crime.